Hello dear viewers, and welcome to my channel on custom painted scale model kit projects as well as pre-painted scale figures. Today I have a special addition to my pre-painted figure collection, as it will be my first upper tier figure from MegaHouse, one that is from their Portrait of Pirates lineup, which means figures of One Piece characters like Princess Shirahoshi here. Inclusion of upper tier pre-painted scale figures have so far been a pretty rare occurrence on my unboxing and review videos, so I hope you are as excited as I am to get a detailed look at this more premium version of the princess. My initial impressions of this MegaHouse Portrait of Pirates figure of Princess Shirahoshi were extremely good before she was even unboxed, due in large part to a beautiful box design with an underwater sea coral theme. In general, the box has a pleasant pastel color scheme with a dark metallic pink line design that's especially prominent around the edges of the octagon-shaped see-through windows on the front and top as well as on both sides of the box. This allows a glimpse of Princess Shirahoshi and Mini Luffy, both of which are securely encased in plastic blisters. On the bottom left corner here is the logo that denotes this figure as being Portrait of Pirates or POP's Sailing Again series. Artwork around the see-through windows mainly comprise photographic images of the princess against the underwater sea-themed background. Here at the top, we have her name in English and Japanese, as well as a top window view of Princess Shirahoshi. On the front top right, there's the silver koi sticker with Japanese letterings, which denotes this as a figure produced for the Japan market. Meanwhile, the sides have the side window views and a nice close-up image of the princess herself. At the back of the box, we are provided with a full view of Princess Shirahoshi holding up Luffy in her hand. And on the bottom right is AmiAmi product rating of B/B, which is the online retailer's way of saying that this box has been opened before and minor dirt or damage may be visible on the figure, while the box itself may have some damage. Just to be clear, I'm not sponsored by AmiAmi, therefore I'm not obligated to say nice things about the Japan-based online retailer. Yet it befits me to give credit where credit is due, because so far I've had a pleasant shopping experience with AmiAmi, and generally I've been extremely satisfied with the quality and condition of the figures I bought from them. Anyway, let's get Princess Shirahoshi out from the box so that we can get started with her unwrapping process, which will be carried out entirely in this video's only ASMR section. Commentary will resume once the unwrapping process is done, which you can skip ahead to using the timestamps below. What immediately catches my eye is how small Luffy is in size relative to the main figure of Princess Shirahoshi, which is more or less correct in terms of scale, because in the anime, the princess is a giant mermaid. Yet Luffy's smallness in size belies the quality of sculpt and paintwork found in this miniature version of the main protagonist in the One Piece series. Details are well defined for its size, with one notable example being how well the eyes were painted. Its clean paintwork extends to the rest of the minifigure, which is small enough in size to negate the need for paint shading. Next, Let's take a close-up look at the display base that has been provided to prop up the significantly large and heavy scale painted figure of Princess Shirahoshi. The base mimics what looks like a multicolored coral reef attached to a blue tinted sea bedrock, with an indentation to complement the curves of a mermaid's tail. At the bottom of the base, there's a printed label stating that this one-piece figure was made in China way back in 2012, so this isn't a new portrait of pirates figure by any means. Now we come to the main attraction, namely Princess Shirahoshi herself, which feels as heavy as she looks, by the way, all 739 grams of her. Being an upper-tier pre-painted scale figure, her facial details and overall character design unsurprisingly closely resembles that of Princess Shirahoshi, the one-piece mermaid. And yes, my pet peeve was overcome as her nails were painted a glossy pink. My expectations for a shaded skin tone were also well met, seeing that she had pinkish orange hues applied as shadows on her cleavage, neck, crooks of her elbows, palms of her hands, and other shadowed areas of her body like the small of her back. And then there's her beautifully sculpted hair, which while generally comprising a color gradation of dark to light pinkish reds overall, it also has light yellow hues on the transparent plastic for the extreme highlights on the ends of her hair. That large swath of light yellow material you see surrounding her hair is actually part of a clothing ensemble that extends from her bikini-like top and not her hair. This contrast between the pinkish reds of her hair and the yellows of her top actually work well in the overall color scheme. The resulting synergy between her long wavy hair and the scarf-like band around her hair makes for a dynamic aesthetic. Meanwhile, the most unique characteristic of this pre-painted figure of Princess Shirahoshi is, of course, the mermaid tail and fin on the lower half of her body. Looking closely at her tail, you can just about make out the individual scales on the surface. While her tail fins are largely clear plastic, the tail itself has been painted in alternating stripes of glossy metallic pink and red. The color scheme on her lower half fits in nicely with the overall color scheme. Because the scales on the tail are visible, it stands to reason that the alternating stripes are inherent features of the tail itself, rather than being a piece of clothing covering up the tail, as I originally had erroneously thought. Apart from the color scheme, all in all, this pre-painted figure of Princess Shirahoshi also stands out due to her many flowing curves, be it from her hair or pose, which certainly contributes to a dynamic-looking figure. I'll talk more about the princess later, after I place her on the base and Luffy on her hand, which I'll be doing next. Now, the MegaHouse Portrait of Pirates figure of Princess Shirahoshi doesn't actually need an assembly process per se, because all three components, comprising the display base, Mini Luffy, and the princess herself, are independent entities that stack up sequentially without any connective system apart from touch and gravity. A concave indentation on the display base generally matches the curves on the mermaid's tail, hence it's fairly easy to orient and place the figure on the base, with the caveat to be careful not to snag the figure's hair on the coral reef, as doing so may lead to either it being damaged or broken. Luffy, on the other hand, sits more precariously atop Princess Shirahoshi's outstretched hand. Yet his position is fairly stable provided you don't move the base and the figure. With that, this MegaHouse one-piece darling is now ready to proceed with a full 360-degree view. MegaHouse Portrait of Pirate figures are highly sought-after collectibles, which is why this Princess Shirahoshi figure is still actively traded in the second-hand market even 13 years after its release. Even if she is technically in a seated pose, this figurine reaches a height slightly above 22 centimeters when measured to the top of the loops of her hair above her head. This indirectly gives you a sense of how large this figure of Princess Shirahoshi actually is, that and her weightiness. But of course, largeness in size for a figure will not be meaningful if the opportunities presented by this bigger form factor isn't translated into better details as well as more expensive paintwork that includes hue gradation. I'm glad to note that MegaHouse makes good use of this large-scale form factor, not only for Princess Shirahoshi, but also for Luffy, who is in scale to the princess. Taking in the pre-painted figure in its entirety, I believe what makes Princess Shirahoshi such an aesthetically pleasing figurine is primarily her excellent sculpt design and quality. Now, her paintwork is excellent with wonderful details and nice hue gradations on her hair and skin tone. But while the color scheme is good and extremely accurate to the character, its red, pink and gold combination is too simple to be the standout feature. This brings me back to her sculpt design and quality in the large form factor, which by the very nature of the subject matter, namely a mermaid princess with long flowing hair, is thus full of S-curves or S-shaped curves in the sculpture. While I've explained about S-curves before in my previous videos, it's a topic worth revisiting in order to better explain a pre-painted figure's aesthetic qualities. In the traditional arts, an S-curve serves a variety of compositional values. For example, they are believed to signify liveliness and dynamism, and have also been attributed to feminine characteristics in general, as opposed to straight lines which tend to signify stasis or inanimate objects. For Princess Shirahoshi, the S-shaped curves or lines can be found on her tail, body, clothing, as well as hair, which makes for a dynamic-looking posture. The excellent color gradations of shadows and highlights, not to mention that beautiful shiny metallic sheen of the scales on the tail, just add to the overall excellence of the figure. And this zoom-in view of Princess Shirahoshi's upper half, that also includes Luffy to scale, one starts to better appreciate the complexity of the sculpt and how well it all ties together, both in form as well as through the color scheme. What actually caught my eye first was her long, wavy and voluminous hair, which is like this not only via the obvious path of sculpt design, but also accentuated by good use of highlights and shadows in her paintwork. Her hair design also ties in well with her gold bikini top attire, mainly through the scarf-like extension that wraps around the back of her head. The scarf itself also has color gradations ranging from gold to transparent plastic for the highlights. And after all that, I have yet to even get to her excellent facial details with its high lightness factor. MegaHouse did an excellent job recreating her big blue eyes, her long narrow nose, as well as the general shape of her face and smile. If I had to nitpick, then perhaps the blushes on her cheeks were not as red as they are in the anime. But to me, this is a good thing, aesthetically, as it makes the figurine somewhat less cartoonish. This subtleness of skin tone shading extends to the rest of her exposed skin, which was painted a light shade of pinkish orange for the shadowed areas. It's a concept that works really well with Princess Shirahoshi's extremely fair skin, as the understated shading prevents her from looking uncharacteristically tan. Then of course we have the minifigure of Luffy the monkey that is to scale relative to the princess, which is a giant mermaid. Here the quality of the paintwork consistently shines through, with clean lines and even coating, albeit without any gradations. As a miniature painter myself, I am drawn to and am highly appreciative of how well they managed to paint the eyes, considering that this is a mass-produced figurine. Moreover, at this even closer look of the princess, little details become more obvious. For example, her seashell earrings, her skirt-like attire strung up by what looks like strings of orange beads, the clear red fish hairpin, and the textures of her bikini top, all of which add up to making this a detail-rich figure. Meanwhile, this lower half view of the MegaHouse Portrait of Pirates figure of Princess Shirahoshi is intended to give you a better overall perspective of her mermaid tail and fin, as well as the coral reef base. Initially, I was a bit mystified as to why the tail was given a glossy metallic paintwork. But if you think about it, it does make perfect sense when you consider the visible scales means her tail isn't being covered by clothing as I initially thought due to the alternating red and pink stripes. And mermaid scales, like fish, sometimes are indeed shiny in a metallic-like sheen. And also like most fish, the mermaid's tail fin is semi-transparent, but with a light application of pink paint at the narrow end to synergize with the overall color scheme. Princess Shirahoshi sits atop a simple yet perfectly functional blue-colored sea bedrock with a small coral reef attached to its side, one that is painted in a mixture of white, pink and yellow. To put everything in context, before I give her a rating and summarize all the features and characteristics of this MegaHouse pre-painted scale figure of Princess Shirahoshi, it's important to note that this is a second-hand or pre-owned figure that was given a ranking of B/B, which, to reiterate here, means minor dirt or damage may be visible on the figure, while the box she came in may have some damage of its own. Well, from what I can gather from handling the Portrait of Pirates figurine up close, Princess Shirahoshi seems, so far at least, to be in great physical condition, and she only exhibited some minor dirt around her cleavage, which I managed to clean using just cotton buds soaked slightly in water. While there was some minor paint chipping on her buttock area where it meets the sea bedrock display, this I attributed more to wear and tear rather than outright damage. Most importantly, it's hidden from view when the figure is set up on the display. Now, the gold admittedly looks a tad faded if I were to compare her to online promotional images. Because I do not have an A-rated pre-owned Princess Shirahoshi figure from AmiAmi to compare, I can't really say for sure if indeed the colors have faded. But I've always had a preference for faded gold, so it's actually a pro rather than a con for me. Setting aside the fact that this is a pre-owned upper-tier figure that was originally released 13 years ago, I find the MegaHouse Portrait of Pirates pre-painted figure of Princess Shirahoshi from One Piece to be an excellent collectible figure which I'm delighted to have added into my collection. I highly recommend that figure collectors, especially One Piece fans, try to get their hands on this lovely mermaid princess in the second-hand or pre-owned figure market. Therefore, it stands to reason that I'm giving this upper-tier pre-painted figure of Princess Shirahoshi from the MegaHouse Portrait of Pirates Sailing Again lineup a rating of Special or S rank. At its core, this upper-tier figurine stays true to the One Piece character it is meant to depict, via accurately sculpted and painted details held together by a dynamic form and pose. And there's also the bonus of a mini Luffy figure to scale that gives us a better perception of Princess Shirahoshi's large size due to her being a giant mermaid. In terms of color scheme, there isn't a whole lot of variety, but the pinkish reds, the golds, the reds and pinks, as well as the blues on the base combine for aesthetically pleasing hues that also score in terms of accuracy. All in all, this Princess Shirahoshi figure is a must-have for every One Piece fan who is also a figure collector. With that, we have come to the end of my first MegaHouse Portrait of Pirates unboxing and review. Thank you so much for watching. It has been a pleasure getting the princess from box to display shelf, and I hope you have both enjoyed the process as well as learned a thing or two about this figurine. As always, stay safe, be well, and be happy.